After I was abducted and sold, my mother became crazy due to excessive longing for me. My father refused to forgive my elder sister, who was with me at that time, before he passed away, and my elder sister was overwhelmed by guilt and swallowed sleeping pills in the bathtub. My soul wanted to rush over to save her. When I opened my eyes, I was reborn in the year I was abducted. My uncle took the banknotes from the human trafficker and said triumphantly, "You guys have to sell my niece far away. Don't give her a chance to come back." It was only after I died that I remembered I originally had a happy family. My parents were open-minded and doted on both my elder sister and me without any tendency to favor sons over daughters. When I was sold to the mountains, I became dull and silly because of a high fever that lasted for too long. The family that bought me locked me in the cellar for more than 10 years. After I gave birth to a boy, they sacrificed me as an offering to the village and finally burned me to death. When my soul returned to my hometown, I learned that my parents were laid to rest in the cold earth not long after what happened to me. My elder sister still hadn't given up looking for me, but she had searched for many years without any news. Her eyes were numb and lifeless, and she often touched the family photo and shed tears silently. "Mom, Dad, I can't hold on anymore. If only my little sister hadn't gotten lost back then. If only I hadn't let go of her hand." As she spoke, she stuffed a full bottle of pills into her mouth. No, I wanted to save my elder sister, but I passed straight through her body, filled with grief and indignation in my heart. What should I do to save my family? Just then, a white light flashed before my eyes, and the next second I suddenly lost consciousness. When I opened my eyes again, I was lying in a freight truck reeking of cigarette smoke. I stared fixedly at the man wearing a leather jacket. It was him, that damned human trafficker. The man took out a stack of red banknotes from his bag and lit a cigarette for the person opposite with an old-fashioned lighter. "David, count it, 300 yuan. Didn't you say there were two goods before? Why is there only this little one?" Through the curling smoke, I clearly saw my uncle's simple and honest face. His expression was displeased. My eldest niece went into the house. There were people inside. It's easier to deceive the younger one. I suddenly felt my whole body turn cold, and tears almost welled up in my eyes. It turned out that for just 300 yuan, the lives of our whole family were ruined. A little more, and my elder sister would have ended up the same as me, but I couldn't figure out why my uncle would do such a thing. My father treated him very well, even when doing business. He would think of taking him along, just like treating a real brother. When he drowned when we were young, it was my father who pulled him back from the brink of death. But I never expected that what he saved was a viper. The human trafficker voiced the doubt in my heart. "David, how did you come up with the idea of selling your niece? Aren't you afraid that your eldest brother will find out? If you don't say it and I don't say it, who will know?" My uncle spat outside the car and said in a particularly dissatisfied tone, "He used to make a living in the fields just like me. Now that he's made it, he won't even lend me 10,000 yuan. He also regards these two girls as the apple of his eye. They can't carry on the family line. My son is the one with a male heir, but he doesn't even want to buy a house for him. Let's see who will take care of him in his old age." The human trafficker laughed heartily and gave a thumbs up. "You're gutsy. If I sell these two girls, he'll have to raise my son for me," my uncle said proudly and then admonished, "By the way, you guys have to sell my niece far away. Don't give her a chance to come back." Because of his words, in my previous life, I was sold to the deep mountains in a foreign province and never saw a sunny day again. In this life, I will make them all pay the price. The effect of the knockout drug in my body hadn't worn off yet. I memorized the locations along the way and looked for a chance to escape. Besides me, there was also a boy as delicate as a carved jade in the car. He had been sleeping soundly. Presumably, he was also a kidnapped child. The freight truck stopped by the roadside in a town. A woman wearing a headscarf came over and asked cautiously, "John, do you have a baby boy this time?" The human trafficker named John looked around warily and made a gesture of yes, 1,000 yuan. The woman heaved a sigh of relief, and a trace of excitement appeared on her highland-flushed face. "Deal." After she handed over the money, she turned around and revealed the bamboo basket on her back. "Put the baby boy in here." Just then, I knew the opportunity had come. I struggled to get up and grabbed the woman's sleeve. "Whoa, Mom, take me with you too. I don't want to be separated from my younger brother." I had to put aside all my cowardice and dignity to have a chance to return to my family. "What do I want to buy you, a girl, for?" The woman turned her head away, but a trace of emotion flashed in her eyes. The boy who was put into the bamboo basket also woke up at this time. He didn't expose me and also cried and shouted for his elder sister. John took the opportunity to promote, by her back to keep the boy company. The girl isn't expensive either and can do some work, Sister Judy. Your husband has also helped me out on weekdays. How about this? You can take her for 500 yuan. The woman was finally persuaded, and so I was also put into the bamboo basket. She covered us tightly with a cloth. Perhaps because she didn't have much guard against two sleeping children, she put us on the ground beside her when she went to the toilet. You stay here and don't come out. There are a lot of human traffickers around here. After confirming that the sound of her footsteps had disappeared, I woke up the boy and asked in a low voice, "Do you want to go home?" He nodded but didn't say anything. "Then follow me, be obedient all the way and don't cry or shout. I'll take you home with me. If you make the slightest sound, I won't care about you anymore." I put on a fierce expression on purpose. After climbing out of the bamboo basket, the two of us ran quickly and disappeared into the crowd. We couldn't call the police yet. The people in this town couldn't be trusted. Maybe they were in cahoots with the human traffickers. I couldn't take that risk. After finding the bus station, I used the last yuan in my pocket to buy 2 bus tickets. At this time, an ID card wasn't needed to take a bus, but the ticket seller was also very puzzled why the two of us, who were so young, were traveling alone. I held the boy's hand tightly and showed a sweet smile to the ticket seller. "Sister, we're going to the county to find our dad. He'll pick us up at the station." When we arrived in the county town, we didn't have enough money to buy train tickets, but we had to go to the city, so I smeared my face and begged all the way. During this period, the boy's stomach rumbled with hunger. Although his eyes were full of longing, he didn't say that he wanted to eat. I was also hungry, but I could only endure it. "We'll be home soon." If we were really starving, we would rummage through the trash cans for some leftovers. After we managed to scrape together enough money to buy tickets, I kept an eye on the time and followed a couple, pretending to be their child to get on the train. Just as the boy and I stepped into the carriage and the train door hadn't closed yet, we saw a group of people rushing into the train station. The woman named Judy pointed at us and shrieked, "My children are missing. Those are my children." As she spoke, she ran over to drag us off the train. There were several hands behind us trying to push us off. "What are you children running around for? Go home with your mother quickly." I suddenly panicked. Was it really impossible to escape? Thinking of the picture of my mother holding my clothes and going crazy and my father's hair turning completely white in my previous life, I became determined. I bit the woman's hand that was grabbing my collar and held onto the iron railing tightly. "You're lying. My mother doesn't look like you. Help. Human traffickers are snatching children." The woman let out a scream of pain and slapped me in the face, making a clear sound. Her accomplice also came up and kicked me in the abdomen. When he saw this, I was kicked to the other end of the carriage and curled up in pain. The onlookers around had indifferent expressions and didn't seem to want to get involved. I vaguely saw that someone beside me seemed to want to stand up, but was pressed down by his companion, who whispered, "It's their family matter. Why bother? Don't do something that won't please anyone." My head was dizzy, and my scalp was suddenly pulled up. The accomplice asked in a thick rural accent, "Sister Judy, what should we do with this girl?" Suddenly, a small body rushed over and hugged me tightly. Bruce cried incoherently, "No, you can't take my elder sister away." Judy picked him up and a look of joy appeared on her face. "My baby, come on, go home with mom." The smell of blood in my throat stimulated the nerve endings in my body. I raised my eyes and shouted with all my strength, "Do you even know our names? My mother loves me very much and would never hit me so hard." "You're lying." Many eyes fell on me. Several passengers felt something was wrong and stood up, blocking the train door. Could they really be human traffickers? The woman's eyes dodged, and a trace of hesitation flashed across her face. She took a few steps back and shouted. "This girl was left behind by my husband's ex-wife. She hasn't been very smart since she was a child and often runs away." It wasn't uncommon for stepmothers to abuse children these days, and this immediately dispelled the doubts of most people. As long as they weren't human traffickers, they didn't want to meddle in family affairs. Just then, a voice as beautiful as a oriole sounded. "Then why didn't you notice that the child in your arms is having an asthma attack? You've been covering him all the time." It was a young girl wearing a white shirt and 2 braids. She followed behind the train conductor and said in a sonorous voice, "I reasonably suspect that you're not their mother at all." Sure enough, when Bruce was rescued, his face had an abnormal flush, his chest was heaving unevenly, His mouth was slightly open, and he was clearly having difficulty breathing. Judy and her accomplice still wanted to cause trouble. But they were driven out by the train conductor. We were saved. As the train started with a rumble, the heart that I had been holding in my throat also settled back down. I crawled with difficulty over to the young girl and tugged at the hem of her pants. "Please, save him, don't worry," she nodded, opened the medical kit she carried with her, and then treated Bruce. The train conductor picked me up and put me on an empty seat. She wiped the blood from the corner of my mouth with a tissue and asked gently, "Does it hurt? Your face is all swollen." "It doesn't hurt. Those were the marks left from biting the bad guys, and they were also a symbol of me defending my own destiny." "Little one, do you know where your home is?" "Yes, I do," I replied softly. How could I not know? That was the home I missed day and night, even when I was in a confused state of mind in my previous life, after I died. I still remembered to go home. It was a pity that it was too late to go back then, and I couldn't meet the family I cared about. Fortunately, in this life, I can finally embark on the journey home. I turned my head and looked at the scenery outside the car window. Tears fell from my eyes in an instant. "Mom and Dad, you must wait for me to come back safely." The young girl with braids was Summer. She was a medical student. She happened to encounter this farce on her way back from visiting her relatives. When I asked her why she was willing to believe me, she smiled, revealing 2 dimples on her cheeks. A soft halo seemed to surround her. What if? I was thinking, what if it's a misunderstanding, just apologize to them properly. It's no big deal. But if it's true, then what I've saved isn't just the 2 of you, but also a broken family. I study medicine to save people, and this is also a way to save lives. Thank you. I hugged her, as if I was embracing my future self. Since then, the first ray of light has shone into my gloomy life. When the train arrived at the station, Sister Summer also got off the platform. She looked a bit surprised and said, "What a coincidence. Are you from City S too?" I replied obediently, "My home isn't here. I don't know about Bruce's." "Then where are you going now?" "I'll give you a ride." I hesitated and stopped in my tracks. Logically speaking, I shouldn't trust anyone now. The girl with braids seemed to see my wariness. She chuckled and took out a student ID from her bag. "Look, don't be afraid. I'm just worried that the 2 of you will get lost again." How worried your family would be then. Sister Summer was very busy. She dropped us off at our destination and then left in a hurry. Before leaving, she stroked my messy hair and stuffed a few buns into my hand. "Little one, have a safe journey." I pressed my lips tightly. Feeling rather complicated, there are many bad people in this world, but there are also good people silently saving this war-torn world. We arrived at the police station safely. Since I could clearly report my home address, I was registered quickly. But Bruce was different. He didn't seem to have learned to speak yet. Apart from calling me sister on the way, he didn't say a word at other times. When he was anxious, he would hang his head and gnaw on his fingers, providing no clues at all. Officer William, who was in charge of the inquiry, sighed. "It's easy to deal with the older one, but what should we do with the younger one?" The boy looked at me blankly, his big, wet eyes like black grapes showing confusion. "Sister, my reason told me that I shouldn't say anything at this moment. The most important thing now was to go home, and other matters would only slow down my pace of going home." So I glared at him and said to Officer William, "Uncle, please send us both home. If there is any news about his family can come to my home to pick him up. Well, since I've brought him here, it doesn't matter if it takes a little more time, to prevent more children from being harmed." I described the relevant information of that human trafficker to Officer William. He was very surprised that I could speak so clearly and logically. "Little one, you remember so clearly, because I almost never got to see my mom and dad again." I clenched my fists, lowered my eyebrows, and tried my best to hide the hatred in my eyes. We made our way back to our home in County W. Standing in front of the gate I suddenly felt a bit timid as I got closer to home. If we count my previous life, I haven't seen my mom and dad for more than 10 years. I summoned up my courage and twisted the doorknob, only to find that the door was tightly closed, and there was a thin layer of dust on the handle. The neighbor next door heard the commotion and stuck his head out to look. "Who is it? That family has gone to the countryside to visit relatives and hasn't come back yet." That's right, at this time, they should still be wandering around repeatedly in the place where I disappeared, constantly searching. According to my sister's description, my mother would stand on the road holding my photo and ask every passerby, even when she went crazy in the end. She would still grab people everywhere and ask, "Have you seen my little daughter? She has a round face, big eyes, and is about this tall. I miss her so much." My father couldn't care less about his business that was just starting to improve. His hair turned gray and he lost tufts of it. He even slept at the train station entrance, for fear that he would miss me if I came back one day. In the 3rd year after I disappeared, my mother couldn't bear the pain and passed away. In November of the same year, my father lay in bed, turned his head away and refused to look at my sister. Before he died, he still kept repeating, "Must find your sister and bring her home." Losing the 2 most important relatives in 1 year, my sister couldn't stop crying. My uncle took the opportunity to occupy our house and drove my sister out in the heavy snow. It was also at this time that he revealed his true nature. It was getting late, but I couldn't wait until the next day. I didn't stop for a moment and went back to our hometown in the countryside. Many years later, I often felt fortunate that I came back in time. The country road was muddy, most people turned off the lights and went to sleep at 3 or 4 in the morning, but there was still one place lit up. As soon as I got out of the car, standing outside the wall paved with blue bricks, I clearly heard that hateful voice, "Big brother, I found a way to get our niece back. It just needs 10,000 yuan for bribes. Once you pay it, they can help you find her." My father gave a bitter smile. "David, I'm not lying to you. If I had 10,000 yuan, I wouldn't hesitate." At that time, there were very few households with 10,000 yuan in the whole county. Where could he get that much money? If you don't have enough money, you can sell the factory and borrow some from the villagers. Then you'll have enough, right? My hypocritical uncle pretended to be worried and said, "I heard that some human traffickers would even break the children's hands and feet and make them beg. You don't want your little niece to end up like that, do you? The later it is, the greater the risk. Selling people and then cheating for money. What a calculating plan." Hearing this, I was so angry that I gritted my teeth and slammed the door, shouting, "Mom, Dad, don't believe him." Several pairs of eyes fixed on me, and the weight of their gazes made it hard for me to move. I stared blankly at my relatives who were so close, filling in the blanks in my memory. It's so good, so good. The figures of my mom and dad were still in color, not the cold, motionless black and white photos hanging on the wall. The next second, I fell into my mother's warm embrace. She hugged me tightly, sobbing continuously, almost unable to speak through her tears. In no time, my hair was wet with her tears. "Zara, my dear child. Where have you been?" My mother's eyes were so swollen, she must have been crying her eyes out these days. My father's hair wasn't completely white yet, but there were already strands of silver hair, which were very dazzling in the dim light. "Why did you run around? Do you know how worried we were?" He approached, raising his palm angrily. I thought my father was going to beat me to let out his anger, and I closed my eyes in fear. In the end, that hand gently landed on my head. As if to confirm whether this was real, my father, who had always been serious, now choked up and his voice trembled. "It's good that you're back. It's good that you're back." In just over 10 days, their backs seemed to have hunched a lot. The tense emotions that had been building up along the way finally welled up in my heart at this moment. I swallowed all the bitterness and fear in my throat and said, "Your child is home." After going through all of this in my life and being reborn, I finally came home. A girl of about my age stood a few meters away. Her young face hadn't been crushed by guilt yet. All she had was worry and unease for me. I ran over and took her hand, calling softly, "Sister." Wow, she couldn't hold back her tears any longer and sobbed, "I'm sorry, Zara. I shouldn't have let go of your hand and left first. It's not your fault, sister. It has nothing to do with you." I owed this sentence to my sister for a long time. I looked at someone who was trying to sneak away on tiptoe and directly confronted him. "Uncle, don't you have anything to say? If you don't, your niece will have to say it for you." The man stopped in his tracks and forced a smile. "It's a great joy that Zara is back. Your second uncle was just going to get a brazier to drive away the evil spirits for you." My parents came to their senses and felt that something was wrong when they heard my tone. I tilted my head and put on an innocent expression. "Then why was uncle sitting with the human trafficker? He also said that he wanted to sell Zara to the mountains." My uncle's simple and honest face instantly turned purple and green. He tried to cover up his guilt with a loud voice. "You little girl, what are you talking nonsense about? How can you slander your uncle like this?" He tugged at my father's sleeve. "Big brother, you have to judge fairly. I've been running around for you these days without a single complaint." My father didn't say anything for a moment. He stared at my uncle, as if he couldn't believe that the brother he had treated with all his heart would sell his own daughter. My mother also looked at me and squatted down to ask gently, Zara, did you maybe see it wrong? No, I said word by word. Uncle also said that he wanted to sell sister too, so that mom and dad could raise his children for him. A child couldn't have made up such words on their own. As soon as I finished speaking, my father's face turned as black as the bottom of a pot. He punched my uncle in the face, grabbed his collar, and lifted him up high. David, I haven't treated you badly all these years, have I? You've never gone hungry, when you said you wanted to go to high school and there was no money at home. I dropped out of school without hesitation to support your studies, but what about you? Is this how you repay me? My uncle was short and couldn't fight against my tall and strong father. He spat out a mouthful of blood foam, and his eyes showed a venomous look. Who cares about your charity? Besides, it was you who couldn't continue studying. What does it have to do with me? In fact, my father's grades were much better than his back then. Seeing this, he didn't bother to pretend anymore and poured out all his dissatisfaction, including but not limited to the matter of borrowing money. As he spoke, he got more and more excited. You should have rotted in the mud. Why can you get rich? Such good luck should have been mine, David, and these two brats. They're not half as good as my son, Tom. You'd rather buy houses for them than for Tom. My mother was so angry that she rushed up and slapped him twice, even swearing. What does your son have to do with us? I think you've been blinded by greed. Just then, an old voice suddenly came from inside the house. Enough. It was my grandmother who rarely showed up. She led my sleepy cousin, Tom, out and scolded my father, oldest son. If you hadn't refused to lend him money, David wouldn't have had to borrow. He just made some small mistakes. Why are you being so harsh? Or is it that for the sake of these two little girls, you're willing to give up your only brother? Small mistakes. I almost laughed. I wanted to say something but was stopped by my sister. She shook her head at me and whispered, Grandma is very fierce. She'll hit you if you talk back. My father was very disappointed. He stopped his actions and said coldly, he wanted to sell my daughter, your own granddaughter. This was no longer a brother. He was clearly an enemy. Girls can't carry on the family line. Grandma pursed her lips and shuffled over to help my uncle up. If she was sold, so be it. If you two can't have a son, you can raise Tom. Tom also clapped his hands. Sell the bad girl, and everything will be mine. It was obvious that he knew about it. It's understandable that the older generation had the idea of favoring sons over daughters, but to this extent, it was simply outrageous. And, clearly, my father was Grandma's child. Why was she so partial to my uncle? Probably feeling that he had someone to back him up. My uncle, who was beaten black and blue, let out a cold snort with his pig-like face. I won't recognize you as my big brother again if I don't get that 10,000 yuan. My father usually cared a lot about his family, so he felt emboldened. My mother also seemed to think that my father would be soft-hearted. She left a harsh word, picked me and my sister up, and walked out. Sam, if you forgive him, you can go over there by yourself. Who cares about being your big brother? My father stamped his foot in a hurry and chased after us. Wife, let's go home together. After coming out, they noticed Bruce, who was sitting quietly on the stone at the door. Which family's child is this? Why is he still outside so late? I forgot to mention. I patted my head and explained, Mom, Dad, this is Bruce. He probably needs to stay at our house for a while. A shy smile appeared on the boy's fair face, and his eyes kept following me without moving away. After returning to our home in the county town, I gave a downplayed account of what happened to Bruce and me on the way. But how could they not know how many hardships two children who hadn't reached the age of understanding would have to go through to escape the clutches of the human traffickers? My mother felt so sorry for us that her eyes welled up with tears again. My poor dear child. I clumsily took a tissue to wipe my mother's tears. Zara is fine. Can Bruce stay with us for now? Would my parents think that I was being presumptuous? After all, an extra mouth meant more expenses for the family, but they didn't. Instead, they praised me for doing the right thing. Zara is a kind and good child, and Mom and Dad are very happy. During the time they lost me, they were constantly longing for me to come home and be reunited with them. I believe Bruce's parents are also waiting for him to go back soon. My father stroked my head and made a final decision. Let Bruce stay at our house for now. Keep an eye out to see if any family nearby has lost a child. Even my sister said, I will take good care of my little brother and sister, because they had experienced the same pain. they also hoped that they could hold an umbrella for other broken families. By doing a little bit, they could help more children go home. Looking at my family who fully supported me, my body and mind seemed to be wrapped in warm water. At the same time, I hated even more the person who caused all the suffering to our family. These days, no one doesn't hate human traffickers. After I spread the news about my uncle's cooperation with the human traffickers, many parents who had lost their children came over and beat my uncle up, asking him where he had sold their children. At first, my uncle didn't admit it, but later he confessed everything. It turned out that he was really responsible for making the connections in several cases. There were more or less some relatives in the village, and everyone hated him to the core. My uncle's reputation was ruined. Every day, people would go to his house and throw stinky eggs and rotten leaves at it, and the wall was even smashed. Some people also went to the village head and hoped that he could be driven out, for fear that their own children would be harmed one day, driven out of the village. My uncle could only kneel in front of our house and beg my father to take him in. Big brother, I was wrong. Please forgive your little brother. My father opened the door and beat him up again. Get out. The next day, my grandmother also knelt at the door and wailed, calling us unfilial descendants, which annoyed the neighbors. So I sent a message to Bob, who was in charge of debt collection in the neighborhood. Soon, a group of strong men in black clothes came. They picked up my uncle as easily as picking up a chicken. Bob was very angry. You, David Dang, made me search high and low for you. Run away. Why don't you keep running? When are you going to pay back the 10,000 yuan you owe me? The wicked need to be punished by the more wicked. My uncle was so scared that his body was shaking like a leaf. You asked my big brother for it. I don't have a penny on me. Oh, I heard that you sold your niece. How can you not have any money? A fierce smile appeared on Bob's face, and he raised his leg and kicked. Although I'm not a good person, I can't stand dirty people like you who traffic children, because I came back in time. In this life, my uncle didn't manage to cheat money from my father. Unable to repay the debt, he had his leg broken and one of his fingers cut off. He could only hide and dodge like a rat crossing the street. After waiting for a while, I finally received a call from the police station in City S. The human trafficker named John and Judy have been caught. Little Zara, please come over to identify the suspects involved in this abduction case. Unlike last time when I was nervous, this time, accompanied by my parents, I finally added my uncle's name to the list of suspects. He should get what's coming to him, and there's no way to let him off. It is said that John is still a central figure, following the clues obtained from his lead. The police promptly raided several human traffickers' dens in a timely manner. Inside, besides children, there were also many young women. Perhaps this is the butterfly effect. I saved my own destiny and indirectly changed the endings of many people. When Grandma learned that Uncle was arrested, she was as anxious as an ant on a hot pan. The old woman somehow heard of a way and came to our house again, demanding that my parents sign a letter of understanding. Not only that, she also rummaged through the house in a mess. She stuffed the grains she could take away into her bosom and destroyed everything that couldn't be taken away. You are Zara's guardians. Sign this, and David will be okay. When we refused, Grandma took out the memorial tablet of Granduncle from her bosom and slapped Dad hard in the face. You ungrateful little beast. Have you forgotten how your eldest uncle fell off the mountain back then? If he hadn't pulled you, you would be lying in the ground now, not knowing whether you're alive or dead. He only has David as his child, and you're not even willing to protect him. Dad raised his head, his eyes full of anger, and said, yes, my eldest uncle pulled me back then. That's why I've spent more than 10 years making amends. I can give in to David in everything, but he shouldn't have harmed my child. Mom comfortingly patted his shoulder. My sister and I looked at each other and tacitly held Dad's palm. Grandma, I called out affectionately and met her venomous gaze. I'm really curious. Clearly, you are Dad's mother, but why are you helping others to hurt your own child? Mom loves Zara very much, but Grandma doesn't love Dad at all. A trace of guilt flashed rapidly in the old woman's eyes. Usually sharp-tongued, she didn't defend herself. Instead, she pressed the letter of understanding heavily on the table and threatened, stop talking nonsense. If you don't sign it within 3 days, I'll go and make a scene at your factory and at the school, and let others spurn you unfilial descendants. After saying that, she slammed the door and left, but this reaction just showed that something was wrong. To figure out the doubts in our hearts, we went back to our hometown in the countryside again on the weekend, but this time, there was no place to live. The house had been smashed to pieces. Fortunately, The older villagers really knew the ins and outs of the matter. The old lady Monica from the neighbor next door had a little granddaughter who also got lost last year, therefore, she hated Uncle to the core and couldn't wait to expose all his secrets. As soon as we asked, she told us everything she knew. The first thing she said was a big revelation, that David is actually the child of your mother and your eldest uncle. Mom and Dad were stunned, so was I. I had expected something explosive, but I didn't expect it to be this explosive. The old lady Monica touched her presbyopic glasses and then pointed at Dad, saying, "You've also had a tough life. Back then, your father couldn't have children. On a rainy day, he brought you back from somewhere. They said you were adopted, but who knows if that's true or not." Dad was stunned for a long time and sighed. No wonder Mom has always favored him. The puzzle from his childhood was finally solved many years later. Grandma ended up shooting herself in the foot. She not only didn't get the letter of understanding but also lost the last bit of affection Dad had for her. As soon as she went to make a scene, she was driven out by the security guards who had received the news in advance before she even entered the door. The next time I saw Uncle was in court. He was sitting at the defendant's table, and I was sitting in the audience. After hearing that he was sentenced to life imprisonment, he started crying bitterly and regretting deeply, shouting loudly, "I clearly made mistakes because I was young and ignorant. Why am I sentenced so severely? Those poor people couldn't afford to raise their children. Isn't it okay for me to send them to the hands of wealthy people to raise?" Judy's sentence was lighter, her face was pale, but her voice was extremely loud. "What's wrong with me just wanting a baby boy? When I get out in 10 years, my husband won't want me anymore." John and other primary culprits were all sentenced to death, in court. They implicated each other and revealed the heinous things the other had done. Many family members of the victims started crying after hearing this. They thought they were innocent, but what about those abducted children, and those parents who lost their children? I watched everything expressionlessly. In my heart, there wasn't the joy of avenging my great hatred as I had imagined. Instead, I was grateful that I could still have a complete family, where there is no buying and selling. There is no crime, as the beneficiaries. They should receive the punishment they deserve. Without the influence of Uncle's mischief and my getting lost, the electronics factory run by Dad quickly got back on track. A portion of the profits obtained will be used to make drawings and stick them on the products. The drawings have photos or information of different children, and the promotional slogan reads, "Help more babies go home." With the fermentation of the heat, the influence of this abduction case became greater and greater, spreading almost all over the country. Bruce's family also came to County W at this time. They were a pair of elderly people with silver hair and a vigorous spirit. They were instantly moved to tears when they saw their grandson who could speak clearly. The dear baby can finally speak. However, a child's memory is short. Bruce didn't recognize them and hid behind me with a scared expression when he saw them. After getting in touch with them for a while, with my help, Bruce gradually opened his heart and began to accept the two elderly people. It was also at this time that I learned that Bruce came from a very wealthy family, but his mother had passed away. His father was a big president who rekindled his old love with his first love during Bruce's mother's pregnancy and had an affair openly. When Bruce was 3 years old, his mother couldn't bear the blow anymore and jumped off the roof. Bruce, who witnessed his mother's departure, also suffered from mild asthma and autism and no longer wanted to speak. His father soon married his first love and ignored Bruce. His grandparents had no choice but to take him back and raise him, until some time ago. The president father suddenly said he would take Bruce out to play. As a result, he received a call from his first love in the hospital on the way and left Bruce in the amusement park and drove away by himself. A lost child is the best target for human traffickers. My memories of the previous life have gradually faded a lot, and I can't recall Bruce's ending either, but Uncle in prison received a lot more attention. Because of this, on the night when Bruce and his family left, my sister suddenly came to my bed in the middle of the night and hugged me and burst into tears. She said she had a very scary dream. In the dream, I didn't go home. Everyone blamed her. Mom and Dad believed the words of Uncle and Grandma and handed over all their money. They also owed a lot of debt but didn't get any news about me in return. Later, Mom and Dad passed away due to the great shock, leaving her alone and helpless. The house was also occupied by Uncle. And when they found me in the mountains, I had already been put into a small jar. She no longer had a family. Nightmares are the opposite. I patted my sister's back and comforted her softly. Zara is already back, and everything in the dream won't happen again. the blurred memories became clear again. Yes, our destinies are completely different now. Many years later, my sister and I both got admitted to the universities we wanted to attend. She studied criminal investigation, and I chose journalism, and Bruce has gone out into the world and become a famous genius pianist. On the day when I was supposed to die at the age of 18, I spent a lot of money hiring people to accompany me into the mountains. I said I wanted to shoot news materials, but in fact, I went to carry out my revenge plan. That familiar mountain village holds a sacrifice every once in a while. They are backward, poor, and ignorant. Every wife in each household was bought from human traffickers. If they couldn't gather enough sacrifices, they would use women who couldn't have children to make up the number. In my previous life, I was one of them. While they were all addicted to the sacrifice, I rescued all the women locked in the cellar. Who are you? What do you want? Without wasting any words with them, I asked the hired people to swap those villagers with the women placed on the sacrificial altar, since you worship the gods. Why don't you taste the feeling of sacrificing yourselves to the gods? They howled in pain in the flames, cursed, and then turned into wisps of black smoke. It was dawn. I took the hand of a girl with a confused look in her eyes and said gently to the other rescued people, "You can go home now. I hope every lost child can find their home. I also hope that in the future, we can all have our own ideals and grow brightly towards the sun." Extra chapter of the previous life. My name is Mia, and I have a cute and well-behaved younger sister named Sarah, but when I was 8 years old, I let go of my sister's hand and went into the house to get some fruit strips. When I came out, my sister was gone. Mom cried every day, and her eyes became so swollen from crying that she couldn't see anything, nor could she see me. Dad resented me until his death and held my hand, telling me that I must bring my sister home. I said okay, and so I spent my whole life fulfilling that promise. Not long after Mom and Dad passed away, I was driven out of the Bai family. Only then did I know that Uncle was a wolf in sheep's clothing. Beneath his hypocritical face was full of rotten filth. I dropped out of school with the little savings I had left and went to work. Because I was young, some evil mind factories only paid me half of what a normal worker would get, but I had no other choice. I needed money to support myself and also needed money to look for my sister. As long as there was any relevant clue, I would go, but every time I returned disappointed. Later, I met a boyfriend who I got along well with. He took me back to his home in the mountains. It was in this cellar that I saw the items that belonged to my sister, the stone bracelet that Mom bought for my sister and me when we were young. I asked about it calmly. My boyfriend said that there used to be people locked up here, for the daughters-in-law bought by their village. As long as they were disobedient and tried to escape, they would be put in chains and locked up. They would be released when they were tamed one day. Those who were always disobedient would be treated like livestock and put into a stone jar during the sacrifice to the gods and burned to death alive. So, was my sister the same? Holding back my anger and sorrow, I found the stone jar containing my sister, collected all the evidence of the crimes, ground the poisonous herbs into juice and poured it into the water tank used for cooking while they were sacrificing, and set fire to the mountain before I left. I buried the stone jar next to Mom and Dad's tombstone. I'm sorry, just wait a little longer, sister. When I send all the bad guys to hell, we can be reunited. Uncle and the human traffickers from that year were all arrested. They knelt down and tried to plead for mercy. We all made mistakes when we were young and ignorant. Please forgive us. What about my sister? I retorted. Did she do anything wrong? She didn't even have a chance to grow up. You said you were young and ignorant. What did my parents do wrong? They ended up lying in the cold ground in their 30s. Each of the guilty people was sentenced to death. After doing everything I needed to do, I returned to the empty room, lay in the bathtub filled with cold water, and poured a bottle of sleeping pills down my throat. As my consciousness was leaving, I seemed to see an illusory figure rushing towards me. Was it my sister coming to pick me up? If only time could be turned back. Sister is willing to trade everything for you to come home. After hearing the first story above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Next, let's continue to see another similar story.